Sup everybody, this is Karak with ACG, and as always it's my continuing mission to bring you reviews for games that I've completed that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. Today we're going to take a look at Antihero from Tim Conklin and published by Versus Evil. Now Antihero is a turn-based strategy gaslight gangland title, say all that quick. It is out August 10th on Steam for $11.99. As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's my review for Antihero, the world's worst curfew punishments, praying by rubbing together 2 coins, and a world where apparently everyone has Pat Sajak's head. Graphics are up first. I actually really like this. We've seen these kind of titles before, the ones that go for that heavy artistic look, because not only can it really differentiate your title, but it can make creating assets a bit easier. And in many ways, Antihero looks like a board game that's been digitalized, and I love it. From the characters that look like bobbleheaded cutouts that have been dipped into heavy inks by their ankles, to the mysterious question mark faced enemies that lurk in shadows until you end up uncovering them. I mean, some of these guys are amazing looking, from the saboteur who looks like someone that stands in the back alley of a 7-Eleven and tries to wave you over when you're buying Skittles, or the truancy officer, which is basically what it would look like if the crypt keeper and the world's scariest social worker had a one-night stand, then bought the baby a horse and said go forth and kidnap kids. For the price point and what the game's delivering, I think it works really well, and so too does the UI, which I think is fairly clean and pretty information easy. On the other hand, there is a couple little issues here. For example, it's a small one and it's about the ability screen. Something about it seems completely off. Now, it might be that the icons for the items are too small or the font or something, but it actually looks like it's from 2 different games. It doesn't affect gameplay at all, it's just sort of noticeable. Overall, I'd say Antihero ran well as you would expect it. A game like this really just barely pushes even low-end PCs, allowing for almost everyone to experience it, and that's the way they want it. As a package, pretty good. Sound, music, and voice.
But he got by. What other choice did he have? The elites, who ruled the city, lived like kings while the masses starved. Whether above the law or below it, everyone was a scoundrel of some sort.
All right then.
And of course, sound is always up first in the audio categories. You know, it's not bad. Listen, this thing doesn't have to track 14 locusts in an underground cave and then figure out what it sounds like when Marcus lumberjacks them in half. It's fairly simple overall sounds for items and the turns themselves, and it fits well with less of a high sugary saccharine sound that I think I expected, and I actually sort of like that. It's a little bit more grounded. Music. So yeah, this is odd in a good way. It's great, and in fact, it's actually pretty damned epic music with not necessarily a full orchestra, but more of a multi-instrument series of tracks playing out as you're engaging in the title's different tomfoolery. I was actually surprised by how ornate it was as well, and how much attention was obviously paid to it. It is excellent. It has horns and winds and strings all sharing time in various different moments. And I have to say bravo too for them actually mixing it up. And there's a bit of this one moment with a feeling of mystery added to the gameplay when this warped string sound started coming in. You know, sometimes we see someone who has the ability to go big time in their music and they stay at that level. And I mean, a scream is great if you're on fire, but if you're just fucking screaming all the time, someone's going to get really tired of you fast. Music can do that as well and sort of numb you to what you're hearing. There's a deft hand shown here, and I have to say, it is absolutely appreciated. Really interesting music. Voice. So, the cutscene voices of the narrator I really liked. He had an excellent storyteller vibe to him, and it was well done from start to finish, I felt. However, I was not a huge fan of all the character voices for the various status changes, like accepting your orders or being brought into play. They weren't necessarily bad, they just didn't fit as well to me for what I was seeing graphically. Now, your mileage is going to vary there, and to be honest, I was shocked to hear voices at all, so that's a minor quibble. Gameplay. And as you guys know, we always start out with a little bit of story. There isn't much here. It's a main campaign separated from the multiplayer and the skirmish mode, and it tells the story of various thieves guilds in the game worlds and the politics between them as you jump from location to location, fulfilling level objectives to move on, with the ability to pick difficulties in between each chapter. Now, gameplay's pretty simple in the starting. The entire level when you start is shrouded in fog, and your main thief has to scout out to allow for the other characters to actually take action. The main thief can scout major establishments or steal from buildings, which are colored this dark gray, until you steal from them twice, with the second going around, of course, being less worthwhile because, let's be honest, if someone steals your TV, you're not going to prop the new one next up to the door so they can steal it quicker. When they actually scout establishments, you find out that there are things like churches and orphanages, banks, estates, and so on, with various additional abilities at each location, either being tied to new characters you bring in or skills you buy your main character, with money from stealing everything not locked down, or lanterns, which can roughly be considered knowledge and is gained from buildings and doing other things. Most of the time, your goal for a level is to fulfill a number of slotted objectives, with most objectives fulfilling a slot, but sometimes in some levels needing something particular. For example, the game may say that a new assassination contract's been unlocked for a character. Now, if you find them and start attacking them, you can kill them and that will fulfill one of your objectives usually, which is basically just sort of a generic. But the game may also start out and say that you need to steal jewels from the palace, which not only require you to do particular things to get there, but it means, of course, the enemy can stop you from doing so. And in that case, it was sort of staging temporary thugs and guard towers. And that's where, to me at least, the brilliance in Antihero is actually noticeable almost instantly. The gameplay hinges on this cool removal of extraneous content, and while there are not a ton of items within the game or units to purchase or skills to acquire, they can be used with these uniquely broad strokes, both short and long-term strategies then paying off with your investment of intelligent unit placing and timing. For example, street urchins, which, just like real children, are cheap if you know where to buy them and basically lack any real defense. But if you stage them in an orphanage, they drop the cost of their unit type. And if you stage more of them in an orphanage, they basically teach new units how to kick out enemy urchins out of other orphanages, which is actually something normally the gang unit would be required to do. Or thugs, for example, which at the start seem hilariously useless. I mean, you buy them and they basically are usable for 2 turns before they swagger off to some pub to meet Shia LaBeouf or something, but they also block the street, and if someone wants to get by them, they have to take them out first. And since everyone has a certain number of actions in a turn, usually 2 or 3, but they can also join with a gang unit and add hearts to the gang unit, who themselves can then be spectacularly useful in their own way, because not only can they, of course, kick people out, they can beat people up, but they can also enter into orphanages and kick the shit out of one-legged Paul. So you have some duality there that I love. And there are not many units, just be aware of that. Just a few, actually, in fact. But it's the way they work together, the way the game actually doles out the locations and the way the turn plays out, with many times not really you knowing anything that the enemy is doing unless they enter the place you scouted. And the game really opens up, I think, when that happens. And I gotta say, the game is cutthroat. Just like St. Patty's Day parties, don't let lucky leprechaun hats and bright colors fool you. There's some gangs of New York shit going on here. Because, I mean, one second you're hiring out a city assassin to do wicked damage to a target to win that level, and lo and behold, your enemy sends officers to the orphanages, snacking up your children lickety-split and removing the bonuses you had right there. Or you enter into a location to steal something only to hear an explosion and find out that your enemy, on their turn, used the saboteur to plant a trap and stun you, removing all your actions that turn. Additionally, Antihero makes a really good argument for flexibility and strategy due to timing, because upgrades are added whenever chosen. You don't have to wait a turn. So if you just got bamboozled by the world's most low-tech grenade, you can find an upgrade that maybe gives your character an extra move, you buy it, and instead of being out of actions, you may have one remaining. And that can actually turn the tides from you not killing the target and maybe the enemy coming in and doing so, to you killing the last target and beating the game. And that happened to me a couple times. Now, as you guys know, I test games AI from the lowest difficulty for folks who have never cut a purse all the way up to the highest level for folks who know that Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is the best instructional video ever. And this is where some problems develop. The game really doesn't take as much advantage on the higher difficulties like I would like when it comes to player gameplay and mistakes. A couple times I had bad luck and I left an enemy the opportunity to take out an assassination target and of course get that objective fulfillment marker. Not all times, but enough times I noticed that it did not do that. Now that doesn't mean they're a pushover, they're not. It just means dynamically, it didn't seem to change as much as I would have liked in the circumstances. You crank the difficulty up and it is no pushover, like I said. It is hard, but it's something you should probably watch for. Now, when it comes to the length of the game, single player is about 6 to 10 hours on one of the difficulties. If you switch up the difficulties, of course, you'll be able to play. Some things will change, it'll be harder, whatever. The level structure is also changed when you restart a level. Additionally, it has multiplayer and it allows for a skirmish mode, which basically allows you to just jump into any map. Fun factor. I adore games that know what they are. They aren't afraid to say, hey, you know what? I don't have 100 of those, but I have 10 of these and they are friggin' awesome. And honestly, Antihero delivers. I love the flexibility and the strategy and the tactics changing in a way that's digestible with ease, leaving you to really think and decide versus decrypt. So as always, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touched again rating scale. This is absolutely a buy. This is a really good game. It's $11.99. It's got a ton of gameplay. It's got the multiplayer, which is great. And the fact is that it is just really fun. It's not a big blockbuster title. It's a title by just a couple people. It's got really good music. And I have to say this, it is a title that has really got me thinking about that ability for some developers to hone in on just delivering excellence in what they decide to show you and not really worrying about having large amounts of something to sort of pad a bullet list somewhere. And I really like it. So as always, I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Maybe check out Twitter or Patreon. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.